Well, it's Thursday, February 26th. I'm Brittany Noble. Here's what's coming up today on The Breakdown. The nation honors Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. as services begin in Chicago, with more this week in South Carolina and Washington, D.C. A Chicago jury rules in favor of a Black family after a 2018 police raid went wrong. We'll hear from the family and their attorney about the verdict. And coming up in our For the Culture segment, the poetry queen, Rian Jenkins, joins us for an exclusive interview to talk about her work, inspiration, and how she celebrates culture through her writing. The Breakdown starts now. Well, the celebration of life for Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. started today. Services will be held in Chicago, South Carolina, and Washington, D.C. this week and next Friday and Saturday. The family released funeral service details. Jackson's body is right now lying in state there at Rainbow Push Coalition on East 50th Street in Chicago today and tomorrow. The doors there opened at 10 o'clock this morning. There's been a long line of people there to view his body. Next Friday, services will be held at the House of Hope. And next Saturday, there will be a private homegoing at Rainbow Push. Jackson died last Tuesday. He was 84 years old. Well, the city of Chicago will pay $5.7 million after a jury found that police wrongfully raided the home of a Black family. A jury determined that a 2018 Chicago police raid at the Tate family home at Back of the Yards Apartments violated their civil rights. Ebony Tate, her mother, Cynthia Eason, and her 4 kids, Imani, Lanaya, Legend, and Lakaya Booth, were at home on August 9, 2018, when the incident occurred. CPD SWAT teams set off flashbang grenades outside the family's apartment before breaking down the door and repeatedly pointing assault rifles directly at the kids. The 4 children were 13, 11, 8, and 4 years old at the time. The jury found CPD officers guilty of acting improperly and using excessive force against the family. During the raid, Tate suffered a panic attack, and her mom was forced outside in front of her neighbors in only a t-shirt and underwear. And now one of the largest payouts from the city. The family, along with their attorney, talk about winning the case.
Glad justice, we have justice now, and I just pray that this will put a stop to the wrongful raids for the next family.
We were ready to give up. But I just want to say this. I don't know if I'm supposed to, but God is an awesome God. All we did was went in there and told our truth.
I believe that the jury was awarding punitive damages against the officers for guns being pointed at these children. I think the jury is sending a message that kind of behavior is absolutely unacceptable on the part of police officers.
Well, each child will receive $1 million in damages, while Tate and Easton will each get $750,000. The city says it disagrees with that verdict and is exploring post-trial motions. Well, a guest of Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, Minneapolis resident Aliyah Rahman, was arrested by Capitol Police during the State of the Union after standing in the gallery. She's a U.S. citizen, was injured in January when federal immigration agents in Minneapolis forcibly removed her from her car. Omar is calling for an investigation, saying her guest was removed despite warning officers about her shoulder injuries and was charged with unlawful conduct for her brief protest during the president's speech. Rahman talks about the moments leading up to her arrest.
I remember standing up, like watching down there, like, what do people think about us? And I hear this thing about, like, he's just complaining about the withholding of DHS funding. And then I hear, you can't stand up. I was like, what do you mean? Like, we've all been standing up and sitting down for the whole thing. And he goes, well, you can't be the only one standing up.
To disrupt the Congress and demonstrate in the congressional buildings. Well, a car chase involving federal immigration enforcement officers led to a multi-vehicle crash Wednesday in Newark, New Jersey. Mayor Rob Baraka said on social media that ICE agents attempted to pull over a van in the state's largest city when the driver fled. He said the ICE agents gave chase, resulting in an accident involving several vehicles, including one carrying 3 kids. The driver of the van was injured, taken to the hospital, and it was not immediately clear the extent of the driver's injuries or why the person was being pursued by ICE. Baraka said in an interview to reporters that he expects to hold agents accountable for their actions.
We're going to use the police report and the information that we have and report it to the governor's office, the Porter Attorney General, and persuade them to kind of, yes, continue to follow suit on this.
Baraka said Newark police were not involved with ICE's investigation and only responded to the crash. Colgate Palmolive says it will ask investors to vote against a conservative shareholder proposal to remove diversity, equity, and inclusion criteria from its board selection process. While many companies scaled back DEI programs over the past year amid political pressure, Colgate is standing firm, joining a small group of firms like Costco and Apple in maintaining its policies. In its 2025 proxy statement, the company noted that 3 of its director nominees are members of underrepresented communities. Well, Oliver Power Grant, a founding member of the hip-hop group, the Wu-Tang Clan, has died. He was 52 years old. The Staten Island-based hip-hop collective confirmed his death on Wednesday, February 25th, through an ex-post, Rest in Power. The group wrote alongside a video showing interview clips of the foundational member. No further details were shared about Grant's cause or manner of death. On Tuesday, February 24th, Grammy-winning rapper and also founding member of the 1990s group Method Man reported Grant's death on Instagram. And singer Brian McKnight is suing Rickey Smiley and radio host Karen Clark in Urban One for defamation. McKnight is fighting back after he claims he was targeted by false and defamatory accusations made by his ex-wife, Julie McKnight, during an interview in 2025 on Foxy 107.1 that's owned by Urban One Incorporated. Well, Brian says his ex-wife, Julie, accused him of being a neglectful father and emotionally abusive toward her and their kids. The suit alleges that Clark amplified the accusations without any opportunity for the singer to defend himself. The suit says the defamatory allegations were rehashed in December 2025 on the Rickey Smiley Morning Show podcast. McKnight says that the accusation severely damaged his career and reputation. So now he's asking for $25,000 for compensation and punitive damages and for ongoing damage to his career and his reputation. Well, coming up on the breakdown, social workers are under pressure and a new petition could put scholarships, loans, and grants for the next generation at risk. Dr. E Street joins us to explain why this matters and why this could affect all of us. And remember, for more news headlines and in-depth coverage 24 hours a day, visit the Black Star Network. We are your source for stories that matter to our community. We'll be right back. You're watching The Breakdown on the Black Star Network.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
If in this country right now, you have people get up in the morning and the only thing they can think about is how many people they can hurt, and they got the power, that's the time for mourning.
For better or worse, what makes America special, it's that legal system that's supposed to protect minorities from the tyranny of the majority.
We are at a point of a moral emergency. We must raise a voice of outrage. We must raise a voice of compassion. And we must raise a voice of unity.
We are not in a crisis of party versus party. We are in a crisis of civilization, a human rights crisis, and a crisis of democracy itself. And guess what? You've been chosen to make sure that those that would destroy, those that would hate, don't have the final say, and they don't ultimately win.
I'm Risa Colbert, and you're watching the Black Star Network.
Social workers are the ones helping families survive homelessness, helping children navigate trauma, responding to mental health crisis, and stepping in when the system fails. But right now, the profession itself is facing growing pressure, and the stakes could be financial, educational, and generational. The National Association of Social Workers, known as NASW, has now filed a petition to the U.S. Department of Education, raising major concerns that could impact scholarships, student loans, and grant funding for future social workers. And if those pipelines shrink, it won't just affect social workers. It certainly will impact all of us. Joining me now is Dr. Eastreet, the Chief Executive Officer for the NASW, to break down just exactly what's happening in this moment. Thank you so much, Dr. Anthony Eastreet, for joining us.
Thank you, Brittany, for having me.
So for viewers who may not be familiar with NASW, tell us what role it plays.
So the National Association of Social Workers is the largest professional social work membership organization in the world. We have a little over 100,000 members, and we set policy, practice standards, and we cover the social work. We cover the code of ethics for our social work professionals. We also engage in continuing education and really set standards for how social workers are practicing within the U.S.
So next month, March, it's National Social Work Month, but right now is not a time for celebration. I want you to talk about that.
Yeah, so next month is Social Work Month, but right now we're really feeling the strain from this administration. As you mentioned earlier, the Department of Education has submitted their final rulemaking, which does not list social work as a professional degree. And that has a lot of implications for the field. Primarily, it means that social workers that are attempting to advance their education with a graduate degree are not able to apply for loans beyond the lower limits. Now, what does this mean in terms of the social work pipeline to advance the profession? It means that social workers will probably have to take out private loans with higher interest rates. It means that individuals will have to try to find different funding sources, or it means that individuals may not come into the field of social work because they're not able to afford the cost of education to complete their degree. I think the other part of it too is, as we are currently experiencing a mental health workforce shortage, social work is the largest profession that provides behavioral services in the United States. So we're going to see more and more of that disparity happening as social workers are not able to access the entryway into the field. That gap in terms of addressing mental health is going to continue to increase and grow.
Yeah, if we're not protecting the future of social workers, what does it mean for our community?
Exactly. And I think that, I like to say all the time, social workers are everywhere. And if you haven't met a social worker in your lifetime, you will. And so when you think about it, from birth all the way to death, social work covers those spectrums. So early childhood education, all the way to working with our older adults in hospice care and other aspects, right? We really try to meet people where they are and work with people in their environment. So, how do we help somebody to age in place or aging in their home, or, if a family needs additional support around providing more mental health services or support services for their children, a social worker is really going to be that person that's going to be able to provide that for you.
If fewer people can afford to become social workers, what does that mean for schools, hospitals, foster care systems, mental health services?
I mean, social workers are the safety net for the society right now. And so when you think about it, it really does create a shortage, and it really impacts the pathway for individuals to come into the field. And so foster care will see less social workers coming in, or less licensed social workers coming in. You'll see hospitals that really work with social workers start to feel that impact. Really, as social workers, or as this rulemaking continues to grow and take shape, it will impact the social work profession. Now, NASW has been a strong advocate against these final rulemakings. And in fact, we've engaged our membership to have almost 30,000 social workers that have signed our petition to the Department of Education. And in fact, today we're doing a day of action where we're asking all social workers to really write letters and comments to the Department of Education Rulemaking Committee on how this is going to impact the field of social work. And right now we've had a great response. We're going to continue to advocate in this space so that social work is included and recognized as a professional degree, so that we can, in fact, ensure that the pathway to a professional social work degree is maintained and increase the workforce.
I want you to tell me a little bit more about what social workers may be seeing on the ground right now that maybe the public is not hearing about.
Oh man, I think that what you're seeing right now in terms of what's happening with this administration, social workers are heavily involved in. So from the mental health shortages to immigration to trans rights to you name it, social workers are involved in this space. I think the real thing is that most people are interacting with social workers and they may not know they're interacting with social workers, right? And so as we're engaging in this space, social workers have a very strong, duty to engage in social justice and advocacy. So you see us out here advocating for, immigration reform, immigration rights. You see us advocating for women's reproductive rights. You see us advocating for more DE&I. And we're really in the space of social justice, but also not only from that advocacy standpoint, but also from that practice standpoint for how do social workers engage in this space. So addressing the harms that have been caused by this administration. So really thinking about, when individuals are scared to go outside because they don't know if they're going to be picked up by ICE, social workers are ones that help them to engage in mental health care, services that may, fill that gap or fill that void for the families that are impacted. And so when we think about it, it really is, looking at how do we advance the profession, but it's also how do we support those children and families of the communities that we serve.
What would you say to lawmakers who claim they support children, families, and mental health, but they are not prioritizing social work resources?
I would say, if you care about children and families the way that you say you are, then certainly, the social work field and profession would be a high priority, because as we engage in this space, as we are, again, the largest providers of behavioral health in the United States, we become that safety net, or we continue to become that safety net for individuals that are addressing needs. Now, the one thing that I can say is that mental health is not a bipartisan issue. Mental health impacts everybody. And so the more that we invest in mental health and those that provide services in the behavioral space, I think that shows a true investment in social work. At the same time, and I would be remiss if I did not mention this. This also goes into a workforce issue around public service loan forgiveness. As you know, NASW has filed a lawsuit against the administration that really does talk about the changes in public service loan forgiveness and how it disproportionately impacts social workers and their ability to seek loan forgiveness based on the populations that we work with or the work that we do in the community.
What can people at home watching right now do to support your effort and protect the social work programs?
So I would say, one, we're coming up on Social Work Month, so make sure you say Happy Social Work Month to a social worker. But two, I think it really it really requires all of us to have a strong, united voice around what we want to see in terms of our healthcare and how that shows up. So really supporting, social workers and the advocacy efforts that we have. If you want to see more about what NASW is doing, please go to www.socialworkers.org, and you can find our public policy priorities under our blueprint for the current administration, which really does highlight workforce advances that we need for social workers, but then also it highlights the work that we're doing with children and families.
As we wrap up now, I want you to, you have the floor right now. Is there something you want to say? Is there something you want us to understand about social workers that we don't say enough?
Yeah, I think it's social work. And again, I go back to the social workers are everywhere. I think a lot of times when people think of social work, they think of the child welfare system and social workers removing children. And I think that the span of social work is far wider than that. So yes, we work in child welfare, but we also work in technology, business, finance. And so there's a lot of different ways that social workers are impacting your life, that are impacting the life of family members you may know, and that are impacting society at large. And I think that we need to support social work on a policy level. So more investments in social work, more investments in public service loan forgiveness, ensuring that social work pay is a priority. So making sure that as we're engaging in this work, that social work pay equity is part of this conversation, making sure that as social workers are engaging in the physician fee scale, that we are paid 100% of the physician fee scale and not just the 75% that we currently are at.
Dr. Anthony Eaststreet, thank you so much for the work that you do. Thank you for joining us, and to all the other social workers out there that could be watching. We see you and we certainly appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Brittany.
Well, coming up, in case you missed it, Roland Martin talks with Representative Al Green about his protest during the State of the Union address. He explains his goal behind standing up against President Trump's racist attacks. Have you come across a news story that deserves our attention? We want to hear from you. Please submit your questions. We have a QR code there on your screen, so just use that to connect with us. We certainly would love to get your feedback. We'll be right back. You're watching The Breakdown.
Hey y'all, welcome to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network and hosted by myself, Rhea Baker, and my good sis, Jamira Burley. We are just two millennial women tackling everything at the intersection of politics, gender, and pop culture.
And we don't just settle for commentary. This is about solution-driven dialogue to get us to the world as it could be and not just as it is.
Watch us on the Black Star Network, so tune in to The Other Side of Change.
Violent white supremacy is, quote, the most persistent and lethal threat in the homeland.
The greatest terrorist threat to the homeland is the homegrown violence stream, including hate crime committed on behalf of some kind of white supremacist ideology.
They are coming after everything in Black America. MAGA and Donald Trump are specifically targeting Black America. They are going after the money. Attack Black Lives Matter. Attack critical race theory. Attack woke DEI. MAGA wants to defund Black America. This is a perfect example of their desire to completely degrade and de-emphasize Black people.
Hi, I'm Swing Cash, Basketball Hall of Famer, and you're watching Black Star Network.
Well, in our Black and Missing segment today, family and friends need your help finding James Eugene Allen Jr. He went missing January 20th of 2023. The 36-year-old was last seen in Maryville, Indiana. He was wearing a yellow jacket, black pants, black shoes, a blue hoodie. He has a lot of tattoos on his body, including one on his neck that says Avery and stars on his shoulder. And if you know where he could be, please contact police 219-769-3722. Well, in case you missed it on Roland Martin Unfiltered, Roland spoke with Texas Democratic Representative Al Green last night. Green was escorted out of the U.S. Capitol during the State of the Union address during President Donald Trump's speech that was on Tuesday night. Green tells Roland why he chose to protest.
Folks, we can always count on my frat brother, Congressman Al Green, to speak truth to power last night when Donald Trump was walking into the House. Congressman Al Green held up this sign. You see it right here. You see Steve Scalise trying to snatch it out of his hand. It says, "Black people aren't apes." Several Republicans tried again to snatch it out of his hand. He was a little later escorted out of the House chamber. Congressman Al Green joins us right now. Congressman, glad to have you back on the show. Why did you want to do that? Why did you want to hold this sign up last night during the State of the Union?
Not only did I want to hold the sign up, I wanted it to be in the president's personal space. I was there to confront the president. I wanted him to know that what he's doing is harming Black people and that we're not going to tolerate it. The president never said that this was wrong. He never said he regretted that it occurred. He, in fact, in essence, condoned it. And I don't, and those who allow this thing to continue, those who tolerate it, perpetuate it. I will not perpetuate the notion that Black people are inferior and somehow related to the ape family.
You had several Republicans who actually tried to walk up to you and snatch it out of your hand. That was an exchange between you and this Oklahoma Congressman Mullen. What did you say to him when he tried a couple of times to snatch it out of your hand?
Well, the exchange was rather quickly done, and I told him that this was my property in essence and that I was going to retain it. There were others who were saying to me that I should not be as concerned about this as I am. And I said to them, in essence, you know, you can't tell me how I should feel about the things that are harming me. And that's what plagues us as a people. Other people want to define our suffering for us and tell us the extent that we should call it suffering. We cannot allow this, and we especially cannot allow these other forms of media to determine when we can complain and how we should complain. Our complaints are ours to voice when we believe it's necessary to have them exposed. Unfortunately, we've gotten to the point now where we can only say certain things on outlets such as yours. For example, the word racism. You say racism on the major networks, they won't have you back. But if we say it here, we can explain why it exists and what we must do to resist the existence of it and eliminate it so that we don't have to suffer from it.
Well, here's the thing that's interesting. Wired magazine reported today that a White House staffer, go to my iPad, Henry, a White House staffer appears to run a massive pro-X account. A popular right-wing account that called a video depicting Barack and Michelle Obama as apes a masterpiece appears to be run by a White House staffer, according to records reviewed by Wired. I mean, that's a perfect example right there, Congressman Green, of here you are protesting this. And you're right, Donald Trump, what did he do? He actually, he claimed after he talked to Senator Tim Scott that he took it down. Later on Air Force One, he basically defended it and said he wasn't going to apologize. And so the White House wants to have it both ways. And so by confronting him, you're challenging him on this very issue.
Yes, we are challenging him on the issue, but we also are challenging him with the confrontation. You can challenge a person with a letter. You can challenge with a phone call. There are other ways to do it, but we've got to find ways to get in his face and challenge him. And this State of the Union is one means by which we can do this. The president knows that he can stand back and this never touches him. And this is what he does. He could care less about our complaining outside the White House. But last night was the opportunity to be there and in his face. And that is something that he does not find a means by which he can avoid. What happened last night was unavoidable. And I will tell you, I went there to do this. The last time it was done with the spontaneity. This time it was intentionality. The president has to know that we're willing to get in his face.
Did you voluntarily leave, or were you escorted out by the House Sergeant at Arms? Were you ordered to be removed? What happened there?
It was a combination of both. I was asked to take down my sign, to hold it down, and I said, no, I would not do that. And we talked a bit more, and after talking a bit more, and they became very, as you know, upset about my continuing to stay on, he agreed that he would escort me out, and I did leave. But it was a combination of both, because at some point, there was going to be more of what was happening. I wasn't trying to avoid that, but I did want to make sure I got my point across. And I stayed until I felt that I gotten my point across. And my intentionality was to leave anyway. I didn't plan to stay to listen through what he was saying. That was never in a part of my program. I wanted to get my point across and then leave. And I did that, and I left.
I got to ask you this here. There was this moment where Donald Trump said, if you agree with this statement, then stand up. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens. The right wing is really playing this up by saying, well, the Republicans stood up and the Democrats, they refused to stand up. What do you say about that? And you know, Glenn Beck is like, oh my God, that was the easiest applause line. And you know, here you had the family of a young girl who was killed by an undocumented worker, and they were like, how dare you dishonor by not standing up? What do you make of that whole part of the speech?
Well, the first duty is to support the Constitution. And the Constitution has places in it where all people are to be protected. So I stand with the Constitution. He stands with a might makes right mentality. And if we allow this might makes right mentality, ends justify the means to persist, we will shred the Constitution. It will become meaningless. And we will then have more than authoritarianism. We will have the dictatorship that we all dread and would not want to see happen and occur in this country. I think even these people on the right, a good many of them would not want to see a dictatorship. But it's about the Constitution. What they try to do is reduce this to a person who's done something dastardly and say, do you support this dastard or do you support the American people? No, I support the Constitution. And if the Constitution accords a person rights, then you don't deny that person's rights simply because the person has done something egregious. You still have to afford people the rights that the Constitution says that they have, because at some point it can be my rights or your rights that the Constitution says that we have. And persons can then say, well, we don't support that because we think it's wrong. Well, you can't do that. I support the Constitution. And when the Constitution says that a person has rights, we have to give them those rights. I'll give you a great example. Due process of the law. He believes that if somehow you've been accused of a crime, you no longer have the right to due process. Well, that's what due process is all about. For people who have been accused of crimes, for people who may have committed crimes, but they still are entitled to due process of the law, because that somewhere along the way, there will be somebody caught in that dragnet that is not guilty, that is innocent. And that law is there to protect that person and extricate that person from that dragnet. We have to have due process of the law. The president believes that he is the law, and no process is due other than what he would accord people of his own volition.
Congressman Al Green, we certainly appreciate you joining us on the show. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, dear brother. Thank you.
Well, coming up tonight, Roland Martin Unfiltered. Roland will talk to an expert about the impact of the Trump administration withholding $250 million in Medicaid funding from the state of Minnesota. Well, coming up after the break, we'll talk about, we'll have our For the Culture segment. We will introduce you to a poet coming up. But first, please know that your support is absolutely critical to the work that we do. You can support us via Cash App using the Stripe code. We'll put that, there it is, the bottom left-hand corner of your screen there. You can also help us out with credit cards. PayPal's R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo's RM Unfiltered, Zelle at RolandSMartin.com, Rolling at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. If you're old school, you can use checks and money orders. It's all payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196 in Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Our goal is to raise $1 million by December 31st, and we surely appreciate your support. We'll see you after the break.
They said the quiet part out loud. Black votes are a threat, so they erased them. After the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act in 2013, Republican legislatures moved fast. New voter ID laws, polling place shutdowns, purges of black voters from the rolls. Trump's Justice Department didn't stop it, they joined in. In 2018, his DOJ backed Ohio's voter purge system, a scheme that disproportionately erased black voters. Their goal, erase black votes and political power. Yeah, that happened. These are the kinds of stories that we cover every day on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Subscribe on YouTube and download the Black Star Network app. Support fact-based independent journalism that centers African Americans and the issues that matter to our community.
If in this country right now, you have people get up in the morning and the only thing they can think about is how many people they can hurt, and they got the power, that's the time for mourning.
For better or worse, what makes America special, it's that legal system that's supposed to protect minorities from the tyranny of the majority.
We are at a point of a moral emergency. We must raise a voice of outrage. We must raise a voice of compassion. And we must raise a voice of unity.
We are not in a crisis of party versus party. We are in a crisis of civilization, a human rights crisis, and a crisis of democracy itself. And guess what? You've been chosen to make sure that those that would destroy, those that would hate, don't have the final say, and they don't ultimately win.
What's happening? This is your man, Motown recording artist Kim. You are watching the Black Star Network.
Well, in our For the Culture segment today, we want to introduce you to the Poetry Queen. Rian Jenkins explores identity, empowerment, and community with intention and heart. Her writing centers representation, self-worth, and the lived experiences that shape how we understand ourselves and our place in the world. I want to introduce everyone to Rian. Thank you for joining us, Poetry Queen.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Tell us about your passion for writing and when it all began.
My passion for writing started when I was 11 years old. I was writing a Roses Are Red, Violets Are Blue poem and didn't realize at the time, but I realize now that I was definitely igniting a passion that was passed down through generations. My mother is a writer, also a former educator, but my grandmothers were the storytellers. And from there, you had my uncles and my aunts who were also great storytellers. So it just, that Roses Are Red, Violets Are Blue poem just ignited something in me. And it went from writing poems to short stories. I wrote my first novel at 12 to doing journalism in my junior year in high school. And it just went from there.
So tell us what happened next after high school.
So after high school, I'll admit I was determined to be the editor-in-chief of Essence magazine. But God put me in a different direction where I changed my major from journalism to English, and I ended up following in my mother's footsteps of being an English teacher. I'm currently still an English teacher for 20 years, but somewhere in there, I still kept writing poetry. I stopped writing fiction because I thought that with writing fiction, I wasn't as good as I thought I was because I took a fiction course that kind of it made me question it, but it just critiqued it. But I took it as I couldn't write well, and then ran into some classmates at a class reunion in 2008 where they told me, where are those stories you used to write? And these are stories I wrote in 7th grade, and we were talking about it almost 12, 13 years later. So I kept writing, and then it finally realized, you know what, I do want to publish. I do want to put my work out there. I do want to perform. So it wasn't until around 2009, maybe 10, started recording everything that I wrote, from stories to poems. I started performing more around 2000 up until now. And then it got to the point around 2021, I finally, during the pandemic, put those 2 first books out there, which is A Queen's Heart and A Queen's Anthem, which started my publishing journey.
And we're showing off some of your books right now. Tell us a little bit more about what you've published.
So the first 2 books, A Queen's Heart is pretty much the first poetry book that is really literally my heart. So I talk about my relationship with God, my relationship with my family. I talk about past relationships with significant others, things that happen in society, like with education and family matters, self-esteem. Queen's Anthem is what I consider affirmations for women through poetry. So reminding us of our power, who created us, and as a result, we can do anything that he has created us to do. Confessions is more of you had the courage to say something, what would you say? So I'm bringing light to situations that people may not talk about or may talk about. I have an innocent poem about how I wish grandparents will live forever because my grandmothers are no longer with us. And I also have a more serious poem that speaks to abuse in the home. So literally the poem is called Mama, What Are You Teaching Me? And this was literally based on 2 separate occasions. As a teacher, I had 2 students come in very traumatic from witnessing their mother being abused. So that stuck with me, and that's what that poem was birthed out of.
How do you share your personal experiences? How do those experiences really shape the themes that you choose to explore in your books?
I know in my books and all throughout my work, I want to empower you in some aspects. So there are some personal experiences that I share in there. For instance, I want to say in the first book, matter of fact, in Queen's Heart and Confessions, because I rewrote it, there's this poem called Avoiding the Label. And at the time when I wrote that poem, I was just frustrated with God because I'll admit, even though I'm 45 now, and I'm still single, believe in God for a husband, but but the poem was speaking to how, as single women, you sometimes get frustrated because you're watching everybody else get married and everybody have a boo thing. But it also speaks to how, out of that impatience, if we're not careful, end up choosing the wrong thing.
Today I realized I was out of my mind to indulge in my pride, preferring being right over just doing right.
It's on my website, so that's what probably realizing
that it's weightless when I remember.
We like it. So how can we hear more of that?
So if you follow me, if you go to my website, it will take you to all of my social media. So I'm on YouTube, I'm on X, I'm on Threads, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram. But if you type in literally my website handle, Rian, R-I-A-N, Jenkins, R-I-A-N Jenkins, you will find me on TikTok, all those platforms, but definitely on YouTube. You can use that handle to follow me and see where I'll be forming next. The next book will be coming out in March, which is entitled Imminence.
And I know that across all of your writing, culture is a strong presence. Why is that so important to you?
Because sadly, when I think about my educational experience, I was not taught to love myself, but it was through my home. It was through my mother and father taking us to places where we saw Maya Angelou perform, where we saw Ron and Natalie Days, and there was an affirmation that they took. So just in case people have not gotten that experience from their home or from their educational experience, I want to make sure I empower our people, because they need to know we did not originate from slave ships. We originated from a continent that birthed every single other continent in this world. And we're very powerful people.
And you also have some children's literature too.
So yes, 2025 is when I release, matter of fact, 2025 is when I release my first children's book, A Blessing for the World, which is actually in dedication to my son, who is 19 years old. That is, I believe, a love letter affirming our boys and how awesome they are. And then Heaven's Jewel came afterwards, because even though I don't have daughters, I have a mentoring group. And so I had to have something to honor those girls, honor my nieces and my little cousins. So Heaven's Jewel is the same thing. So both of them are love letters. As a poem that affirms who they are and the strength of who they are, and just to keep and believe in who the awesome people that they are. So I call it my love letter to our beautiful Black sons is A Blessing for the World, and Heaven's Jewel is a love letter to our beautiful Black girls.
And what conversations do you hope your stories spark among readers?
I hope it sparks that you realize the power that you possess within you, the greatness you have within you, that any opposition that comes is only meant to deter you from your purpose and deter you from your goals, so to keep pushing through it. And to also know that you have, again, a greatness that was birthed inside of you. Nothing you had to gain, it came with you. So just exhibit that in the best way possible to exhibit your life, because the reality is our world needs more light, and you definitely possess that.
Well, Rian, I hate to put you on the spot, but you could have the spotlight right now if you'd like to share a line or two.
Okay. All right. I had a feeling. So this is actually Heaven's Jewel, the poem, but it birthed the book, but this is the actual poem.
Okay.
God saw something was missing. Man needed me. A queen to reign with his king, ruling and dominating the winds and the seas. But something about this earth does not function if we do not operate in our purpose. If you want me to go longer, I can. I'm not sure.
You're great. You're fantastic. Thank you for just giving us a little snippet. And I just want to let everybody know at home, you can check out her website. It's RianJenkins.com, right?
RianNJenkins.com.
Rian, RIANN Jenkins.com. All right. The poetry queen, Rian Jenkins. Thank you for sharing your gift with us here on The Breakdown.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We want to thank you guys so much for joining us today on The Breakdown. And do you know anyone in our community who deserves the Noble Spotlight? We would love to hear from you. So please just reach out to us online. You can go to our website. There's a QR code right there so that you can send any of your news tips to us, to the community. And we would love to hear what you have to say. And we, again, would like to let you know that you can always shop the Black Star, shop blackstarnetwork.com. That's an easy way to represent the Black Star Network beyond the screen. You can go to shop blackstarnetwork.com and you can find official Black Star Network swag, hoodies, t-shirts, crew necks, and we'd love for you to just support the show and Black-owned media wherever you go. That's going to do it for us today. Oh, look at all of the different items you could get on our website. We would love for you to just support the culture. Let's keep our money circulating in our community. ShopBlackStarNetwork.com. That's going to do it for us today here on The Breakdown. We want to thank you so much for spending part of your day with us. Again, be sure to keep the conversation going online. I would love to connect with you. You can find me at The Noble Journalist. Let me know your story ideas, any questions. Just let me know what's happening in your community because I'd love to report about it. And don't forget, we'll be right back here tomorrow with more news, more context, more voices that matter here on The Breakdown. And for more news and special coverage, on-demand content, you can always visit BlackStarNetwork.com and check out everything happening across the Black Star Network. You see it right there. We did recently have the State of Our Union. You can watch it there on our website, BlackStarNetwork.com. I want to thank you again for joining us, for supporting us, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Have a great day.